Hey guys, that's Communications, and welcome to my review of Beetlejuice. This is a review slash retrospective of Beetlejuice. This 20th anniversary deluxe edition is a bunch of fucking bullshit. That's what it is. This is not a 20th anniversary edition. Deluxe. There's nothing deluxe about this. I get 2 episodes of the cartoon. Whoop-de fucking do. And I get to hear the soundtrack with just the music, without the sound effects. Yay! That's fantastic. And I get the trailer. Wow! So deluxe. This is less deluxe than a deluxe cheeseburger. Just infuriating, really. This is I'd probably say my second favorite Tim Burton movie after Batman. And I grew up with this movie. I watched this a lot. This is, one of my parents' favorite movies and one of my mom's favorite movies. What my It's my stepmom's favorite movie of all time. So, and I watched it constantly as a kid. And I remember I had to when I wanted to watch Beetlejuice, because it was a little, even for a PG rated movie. Yep, it's rated PG. It was pretty dark and pretty scary and pretty strange and pretty adult in its humor. And I had to ask my mom permission to watch it. So I always remember, I had a feeling, I wanted to watch Beetlejuice. So I'd have to ask my mom to watch it if I could watch it, which is just like the whole ending of the movie where Winona Ryder is like, "Hey, can I have permission to do the thing where they possess her and let her dance around with the Shake Shake Sonora song at the end? Can I have your permission?" It's the same sort of thing, but with watching this movie. And this is one of those few movies, for me, that if it's on TV, if it's on demand, if somebody's watching Beetlejuice, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna watch Beetlejuice. I'm gonna watch Beetlejuice with them, or I'm gonna watch Beetlejuice, all the way through. I have never, ever, anytime I've decided to see this movie, fallen asleep or not watched the thing all the way through. And it's hard not to either, because it's such an excellent film, but also because it's very short. It's only 92 minutes long, and it goes by really quick, and it doesn't really overstay its welcome, and it's really fast paced, and it's just a really fun ride. Um, this is the Tim Burton I miss. This is the Tim Burton who definitely had passion. This is the Tim Burton who was doing something different at this point in time. This movie was a huge hit when it came out, an unexpected hit for Warner Brothers, and in 1988, it was a huge hit and established Tim Burton as a very viable director in terms of box office clout. And what's crazy too is that Michael Keaton, his character Beetlejuice, he spent only 2 weeks filming his part in this movie, and his part only lasts about 17.5 minutes out of the entire movie. But it is the most memorable parts of the film are Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton steals the show. It's Beetlejuice. He's the ghost of the most, babe. And the movie's called Beetlejuice, so it makes sense that he would end up having the most impact. But also, I think it just is a testament how excellent of an actor Michael Keaton is to, have that limited amount of screen time and leave a lasting impression that still holds up to this day and will continue to do so for years to come, and an impression that even inspired a cartoon series. So, yeah, very excellent performance of Michael Keaton. Shows his comedic timing, shows his ability as an actor to become a chameleon and do whatever you want him to do. And this is even his favorite role that he's done in film is Beetlejuice, and that's why he's expressed always when they're thinking about doing a sequel. He's always expressed interest, even when they consider doing Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Stupid movie. As Kevin Smith said, why must we? I thought Beetlejuice, pretty much covered all its bases in the first movie. Why must we go tropical? And I agree with that. Why must we go tropical? And but even though it was a dumb idea, even Keaton was still on board with it because he loves this character. He loves playing this character, and it shows when you watch the film. But also, I mean, so many things about this movie are great. The directing by Tim Burton. This is when this is his first time he did his gothic style. This was new. This was fresh. This was innovative. And when if there's anybody out here who might be watching this or who hasn't seen Beetlejuice, do not go into it thinking that the problem with I think with people who are new to the film, they're so used to this gothic sort of Tim Burton thing. It's become a cliche now. But when this movie came out, it was not a cliche. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the audiences in 1988, if that's if that's possible for you, in order to appreciate the film if you're watching it for the first time, because you have to put it into context. This film was made before all of the other Tim Burton films, which you consider cliche now, like Dark Shadows and so forth. This was made first. So, Tim Burton, you want to say he's a hack, he's unoriginal, all this style, blah, 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 blah. Well, that style was new and fresh of this movie. So, of course, if you look at this movie and you compare it to all of the other Tim Burton's most recent half-assed works, you're probably going to look at it and say, oh, well, it's not that impressive. And that's to each their own. That's your own opinion. But in my opinion, if you look at it like that, without looking at it from the time period that, looking at it from the eyes of a person who, would have, who saw it in the time period it was released, you're not being fair to the film. And that's what I kind of got to do that with a lot of movies is it try to at least put, when you watch a film, especially an older movie, and you're of this newer generation, I'm not saying everyone of this newer generation is like this, but when you watch a newer movie, you got to sit down, and when you decide to watch it, you have to put things into context and put a little bit of perspective into it. Realize that the effects might not be as good as they are today because the movie was made in 1988, and they only had a limited amount of money. They had $1 million budget to do effects, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. So well. Robert Short and company and the guys who did the makeup effects for this movie did such a great job that they won an Oscar for it, and they deserved, the Oscar that they got for doing doing the makeup effects in this movie. It's phenomenal for the low budget that they had, and you just have to look at it in a way like that. Look at it like, okay, this is Tim Burton's first foray into this type of gothic comedy. He would go on and just do the same style later in his career, but this is the first time where he really did a whole movie with this style. And in my opinion, it's still the best movie that he's done with this style because you can tell that it was something new, it was something fresh, it was something different. And audiences back in 1988 really responded, quite well to the film, which is really was totally unexpected. Like I said, this was a surprise hit. It was made on $15 million budget, and it made $73.7 million in terms of profit, and that's impressive. I mean, the box office for um yeah made us yeah 73 million. That's a good amount of hefty amount of profit for a $15 million budget film. And was it a huge blockbuster hit? No, but it was definitely a surprise hit and one of the highest grossing movies of that year of 1988. And it was just it was just really surprising because of the subject matter. Even Warner Brothers didn't really like the title. They didn't want to call it Beetlejuice. They thought of considering calling it something else. They considered calling it House Ghosts because they thought they didn't like the title. So Tim Burton, as a joke, suggested the name Scared Sheetless. Excuse me. Fucking sneezing for some reason. And he suggested the name Scared Sheetless, and he was actually horrified. He was actually scared shitless, literally, when Warner Brothers considered using the title. So, so Beetlejuice surprise hit with audiences and critics alike in 1988. And still has a really, really rabid, big cult fan base. And that's why I don't understand this lazy ass fucking excuse for a 20th anniversary deluxe edition DVD. I don't get it. It's fucking lazy. I only got this because it was like really cheap at Walmart. That's the only reason why, so I could have it on DVD. Because I only had it on VHS and this, before I got this in Laserdisc. So, but 3 episodes of the cartoon is not a deluxe edition. and it's disrespectful to this film that made a lot of money for Warner Brothers and inspired a cartoon series. It was very profitable for them. It's disrespectful to the fan base who really loved this movie, and to have no features, not even a commentary of Tim Burton or Michael Keaton, or no interviews with Michael Keaton, no interviews with Tim Burton, no interviews with Catherine O'Hara, no interviews with Geena Davis, no interviews with anybody is bullshit. Geena Davis sat down and talked about The Fly. I'm pretty sure she wouldn't mind talking about Beetlejuice. If Alec Baldwin wants to be a dick and doesn't want to sit down and talk about it, that's his problem. But I don't know. Seeing that he talked a little bit about The Shadow on the recent Shout Factory Blu-ray, I could see him maybe talking about Beetlejuice, one of the film that pretty much established him as a star and got his foot right in the door, and got him multiple more casting jobs because of this movie. You could say that this role in a big hit film in Beetlejuice, it was his breakout role, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind talking about his breakout role. And the effects guys, I'm pretty sure Robert Short and company would not mind talking about their effects in Beetlejuice that they won an Oscar for. Danny Elfman will talk about the music. He talked about the music for the Batman DVD. Why this did not get a 2-disc makes no sense. And it just screams of laziness by Warner Brothers. It doesn't see. I do not buy that it might have been Tim Burton not wanting to talk about, which is bullshit because he's thinking about doing a sequel. It's not Michael Keaton not wanting to sit down and talk about it, because Michael Keaton talks about it in Beetlejuice as much as he can in any interview. So that's his favorite role. He will sit down and talk about Beetlejuice. He had more fun doing Beetlejuice than he did playing Batman. It wasn't as hard of an experience for him, on the set. So he would He would talk about Beetlejuice. Winona Ryder, she wouldn't mind talking about Beetlejuice either. This doesn't make any sense. I understand the guy who played Otho, sadly, he passed away, and that's really too bad. But that doesn't mean that there should be no features. Yeah, Glenn Shadix, yeah, he passed away, I think. Yeah, he did. And I don't get it. I don't understand why Beetlejuice does not have the special edition treatment, because this shit doesn't count. I don't get it. I hope maybe they get it together for maybe a new Blu-ray DVD release by the time the sequel comes out, or around the 30th anniversary, hopefully before then. How about the 25th anniversary? Wouldn't the 25th anniversary be 2015, I think? Wouldn't that be the 25th anniversary? It came out in 88. 2018 would be, that wouldn't be. The 25th probably already, I think, already passed, actually. No, I mean, when did this come out? This came out in 2008. So 2008, it's 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. They already missed out on the well, isn't it? 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. Yeah, it would have been last year. Would have been the 25th anniversary. So they fucked up and did nothing. So they missed the 25th anniversary, for a chance. And I'd be fine with it. Doesn't even have to be an anniversary. Just get out a special edition. This is bullshit. There's no reason why the Beetlejuice did not have multiple featurettes like the Batman DVDs did. If Batman and Robin and Battlefield Earth have special editions for Warner Brothers, Beetlejuice not having one makes no fucking sense and is unacceptable. It's just fucking ridiculous. One of the things that really piss me off and grind my gears is shit like this, because it makes no sense. It would be a bestseller. They're huge fans of this movie. They would buy the Blu-ray. They would buy the DVD. So it's not like you wouldn't make money on it. It makes no fucking sense. I don't buy that any of the stars are cock blocking it and wanting to stop, don't want to talk about it because of some reason, one or another. Because when you have interviews with these cast members on what if they might want to do a sequel, they all talk positively about the film. So it makes no sense that they would not sit down and talk about the movie for a featurette. It's just fucking laziness. It's not like the Poltergeist DVD where Steven Spielberg decided to be an ass and completely shut down the whole original plan for the 25th anniversary of Poltergeist. This is nothing like that. This is just pure and simple fucking laziness by Warner Brothers and just expecting fans of Beetlejuice to just be like, that's fine, at least it's better than nothing, which is bullshit. Because all this is the same goddamn DVD released, the first time around with 3 cartoons. That's it. It's fucking pathetic. So anyway, yeah. I'm try not to do the whole review ranting on this bullshit DVD, but I had to get it off my chest first before I, talk about my love of this film. Because this is fucking bullshit. I mean, and I'm so passionate about it because I'm passionate about this movie, and it deserves better. This is fucking cheap ass fucking bullshit. Anyway, going back to talk about the actual movie and not Warner Brothers' massive fuck up of a 20th anniversary deluxe edition. The movie actually started out a lot different in its conception than it ultimately ended up being. The film was directed by Tim Burton, but it was based on a screenplay by Michael McDowell and Warren Scarron, based on a story by Michael McDowell. Well, Michael McDowell's story was drastically different than the final film. Michael McDowell's original script was far less comedic and much more violent. The Maitlands' car crash is depicted graphically, with Barbara's arm being crushed and the couple screaming for help as they slowly drown in the river. A reference to this remained in all versions of the script, as Barbara remarks that her arm feels cold upon returning home as a ghost. Instead of possessing the Dietzes and forcing them to dance during dinner, the Maitlands cause a vine-patterned carpet to come to life and attack the Dietzes by tangling them to their chairs. Even the character of Beetlejuice was drastically different. The character of Beetlejuice, envisioned by McDowell as a winged demon who takes on the form of a short Middle Eastern man, is also intent on killing the Dietzes rather than scaring them, and wants to rape Lydia instead of marry her. Yeah. Totally different. And not in a good way. In this version of the script, Beetlejuice only needs to be exhumed from his grave to be summoned, after which he is free to wreak havoc. He can be summoned or controlled by saying his name 3 times, and wanders the world freely, appearing to torment different characters in different manifestations. McDowell's script also featured a second Dietz child, 9-year-old Kathy, who was the only person to be able to see the Maitlands and the subject of Beetlejuice's homicidal wrath in the film's climax, during which he mutilates her while in the form of a rabid squirrel right before revealing his true form. What the fuck was Michael McDowell smoking when he wrote this screenplay? The film was to have concluded with the Maitlands, Dietzes, and Ofo conducting exorcism ritual that destroys Beetlejuice and the Maitlands, transforming into miniature versions of themselves and moving into Adam's model of their home, which they refurbished to look like their house before the Dietzes moved in. Sounds like a clusterfuck of a movie. So even Warner Brothers felt this way. So they brought in Warren Scarron, who rewrote the film and drastically shifted the film's tone, indicating the graphic nature of the Maitlands' deaths while depicting the afterlife as a complex bureaucracy, which is a really cool idea and one of my favorite parts of the movie. Is the whole idea that the afterlife in this film is drastically different than any kind of cinematic afterlife you've ever seen. It's like you go into the DMV. It's not like there's heaven or hell. It's just you're stuck. The afterlife is just as shitty as your real life, pretty much. Scarron's rewrite also altered McDowell's depiction of the limbo that keeps Barbara and Adam trapped inside of their home. In McDowell's script, it takes on the form of a massive empty void filled with giant clock gears that shred the fabric of time and space as they move. Scarron had Barbara and Adam encounter different limbos every time they leave their home, including the clock world and Sandworm's world, identified as a Saturn's moon Titan. Scarron also introduced the leitmotif of music accompanying Barbara and Adam's ghostly hijinks, although his script didn't specify Motown tunes instead of Harry Belafonte, and was to have concluded with Lydia dancing to When a Man Loves a Woman, instead of Shake, Shake, Sonora. Scarron's first draft retains some of the more sinister characteristics of McDowell's Beetlejuice, but toned down the character to make him a troublesome pervert rather than blatantly murderous. Beetlejuice's true form was that of a Middle Eastern man, and much of his dialogue was written in African American vernacular English. This version concluded with the Deetzes returning to New York and leaving Lydia in the care of the Maitlands, who, with Lydia's help, transformed the exterior of their home into a stereotypical haunted house while returning the interior to its previous state. So, yeah, it sounds like there was even more rewrites than even for Warren Scarron because, a lot of screenplays get rewritten. But I just gotta say that the original draft by Michael McDowell sounds like an awful movie. Beetlejuice wants to rape Lydia. There's like a 9-year-old girl named Kathy, and then Beetlejuice mutilates her in the form of a rabid squirrel. Like I said, what the fuck was Michael McDowell smoking when he wrote that script? And can I have some? But anyway, the changes were for the better. Because without the comedic tone, it would not be as memorable of a movie. Without changing Beetlejuice from, the, black and white striped suit wearing, it's Showtime, Ghost of the Most, having him be a Middle Eastern, short Middle Eastern, middle-aged man would be stupid. And it just totally would not be at all as memorable of a film. It'd be one of those movies that might have some good ambition, might have some good things about it, but overall it would not nearly have had the impact and the cultural, nearly had the cultural impact that it had. It was a pop culture phenomenon when it came out, and still in a lot of ways is. So, yeah, a lot of those changes were for the better. Anyway, the film, it stars Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, Alec Baldwin as Adam Maitland in his breakout role. Because before this, he really hadn't done that much in terms of a starring role in films. He was in some roles in a few TV movies and a couple other movies, but he never really had that big role until now, until Beetlejuice. Geena Davis is Barbara Maitland. She was already established as a star. She was in The Fly. She was in I think it's called The Accidental Tourist. And Winona Ryder, I believe she had gotten roles before this. She was another. I think she did Heather's before this movie. Because this came out in '88, and I believe Heather's came out in. Yeah, no, Heather's came out in '88 too. She was in Lucas in a bit part, and she was in Square Dance. And she was in 1969, the same year as Beetlejuice and Heathers. Yeah, Beetlejuice has her breakout role as well. This is one of her first really big roles. Catherine O'Hara, from SCTV fame, she was also in Home Alone as the mom. She's in this as Delia, Dietz, Lydia's stepmother. Jeffrey Jones is in as Charles Dietz, or her father. Glenn Shadix plays Ofo. Sylvia Sidney plays Juno. Just the one she plays the caseworker for the Maitlands. She's the whole thing where she's smoking through the hole in her neck. Robert Goulet is a bit part as Maxie Dean, one of the business friends of Jeffrey Jones. Dick Cavett is also one of his friends as well as Bernard. Same for Annie McEnroe as Jane. And Tony Cox plays the preacher near the end of the movie, and Jack Angel does the voice of the preacher. And a little bit more of trivia here. All the people who in the waiting room in the office are in the same condition as when they died, and the way that they died is shown clearly. However, the Maitlands who were drowned are not wet. This was done deliberately since the director felt that keeping the actors wet all the time would be too uncomfortable. Makes sense. When Glenn Shadix, who played Ofo, died in September 2010, may he rest in peace, the last song performed at his memorial service was Deo, the Banana Boat song, which was used to great effect in the dinner party scene, where everyone around the table was possessed and dances to the music. That's a fitting send-off for Glenn. The title character Beetlejuice is named for the bright red star in the constellation of Orion, Betelgeuse. The original plan for the dinner party was to have the guests dance to a song by the Ink Spots, but Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara suggested the music be calypso. Beetlejuice reveals a hideous, albeit unseen, face to Adam and Barbara in one scene. When Adam asks him if he can be scary. Originally, the Beetlejuice's scary face was going to be seen, and an elaborate makeup effect was created to that end, but ultimately went unused. I'm curious to see what that looked like. This kind of stuff that maybe Robert Short might be able to tell us about if he was interviewed for a special edition. During the sequence when Adam and Barbara enter Juno's office and see her speaking to a recently deceased football team, a movie theater full of ghosts can be seen through Juno's office window. When the film was first released in theaters, the scene created the illusion that the audience were themselves being watched by the ghosts. Among the ghosts in the audiences were a red skeleton and a green skeleton, identical to the one seen in Tim Burton's later movie Mars Attacks, a woman with red hair, and two men in suits and Ray-Ban style sunglasses. Wow! I've seen this movie like dozens of times, and I do not remember that in that scene. I need to be on the lookout for that. The movie theater full of ghosts. When I watch this movie again. The snake scene had to be filmed before Michael Keaton was cast as Beetlejuice, and the animatronic snake used bore no resemblance to the actor. After Keaton had been cast, some additional film was shot for the scene using a stop-motion snake that looked more like Beetlejuice. This is suggested by the studio to make sure the audience knows that the snake is actually Beetlejuice and not some random monster from the afterlife. Makes sense. According to Dick Cavett, Tim Burton tried to film the scene where the shrimp jump off the plates and attack the dinner party by positioning stagehands beneath the table and throwing them. Cavett suggested placing the shrimp on their faces, filming them as they fell off, and then running the film in reverse, which Burton did. This kind of advice shows that Burton was still young. He was still figuring things out as a director. Think about it, his directorial debut was literally only a couple years before this in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and so he's still learning. So it's nice to have nice to also accept their help too, and not be some stuck-up prick who doesn't want to accept anybody's help. Like you can all do it yourself. So he was able to get out of his own way and accept criticism and help from those who were working with him on the film in order to make the movie better. At the dinner party, Ofo states that people commit suicide and end up as civil servants in the afterlife. The character played by Patrice Martinez / Miss Argentina, who apparently slit her wrists, confirms this as she's spending her death as a receptionist. Further in the back room, as the Maitlands are being led to their door, there's another man hanging from his noose, and the man aiding them obviously stepped in front of a bus. More about the sequel. Not surprisingly, the movie's impressive box office success created plans for a sequel. Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Stupid. So stupid. Just as stupid as this shitty DVD. The script was commissioned, and Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder both signed on to reprise their respective roles, but Tim Burton lost interest in the project and went on to direct Batman, and Batman Returns instead. As late as 1996, Warner Brothers was still trying to get the original sequel concept into production. But thank God it hasn't materialized yet. So they completely scrapped that idea now and going with another sequel, which I think is being written by Seth Grahame-Smith, who wrote Dark Shadows, and that was a piece of shit, so I don't know. Along with 1987 Spaceballs and 1988's Big and Caddyshack 2, Beetlejuice is notable for campaigning the F word in a film rated PG during the PG-13 era. Can't do that nowadays. Tim Burton originally wanted Sammy Davis Jr., a favorite star since his childhood, to play the role of Beetlejuice, but studio executives didn't like that idea at all. Good! I don't like that idea at all either. Catherine O'Hara was a replacement for an ill Angelica Houston as Delia. On the set, she met her future husband, production designer Bo Welch. Bo Welch did a phenomenal job production design for this movie. Very unique artistry displayed on this, displayed in the film. Angelica Houston, I could see that. She would go on to become, Morticia Addams later in her career, but yeah, I could definitely see that. A toy line was released in conjunction with the film, featuring action figures of most of Beetlejuice's incarnations. Ofo Adam, whose figure featured him wearing a red baseball cap, and the shrunken head man from the waiting room, whose figure was named Harry the Haunted Hunter, and came with a detachable head showing what he looked like before death. According to Michael Keaton, the Beetlejuice character was described to him by director Tim Burton as having lived in every time period but no time period. Keaton used this as a jumping off point to create the character with such features as a shock hairdo, mold makeup, and large teeth. He said that when he first showed up to the set as Beetlejuice, the crew was chanting, "Juice, juice, juice." This got Keaton excited to do a lot of improvisation during filming, which is another reason why the character appears so natural and is so great, and his performance is so fantastic. Because Keaton's really good at improvisation too. He's one of the best at it, but he never really seems like nowadays. Of course, he's not getting his chance to do that. He needs to be in a comedy. Somebody needs. He was great in The Other Guys. He needs more roles like that. He can do other stuff too. He can play bad guys. He's a multifaceted actor, but where he's at his best is doing comedy, and he needs to do more of that. He needs to have a starring role in a comedy. I think he'd do a fantastic job as usual if he had a chance to do that now. The only cast member who would initially commit to the project was Geena Davis. Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and Sylvia Sidney all said no at least once. Producer David Geffen convinced Michael Keaton's manager to convince Michael to meet with director Tim Burton. Once Michael said yes, Tim Burton personally called Sylvia Sidney and begged her to do the movie, and he flew out to meet with Catherine O'Hara to convince her as well. Producer John Peters thought of casting controversial comedian Sam Kinison as Beetlejuice, but Kinison's agent never told him about it. I could kind of see Kinison as Beetlejuice, but I'm glad Michael Keaton got the role, and Juliette Lewis auditioned for the role of Lydia, as did Lori Loughlin, Diane Lane, Sarah Jessica Parker, Brooke Shields, Justin Bateman, Molly Ringwald, and Jennifer Connelly, and they all turned down the same role. And Dudley Moore at one point was also considered the part of Beetlejuice. I can't see Dudley Moore as Beetlejuice. Nope, just can't see it. So that is the trivia there. I think it's a good amount of trivia for a great film. I'd like to hear more thoughts from the cast and crew, but Warner Brothers wants to be a bunch of lazy assholes and doesn't want to get these guys and gals in a room and put a camera up and film and shoot and show and record their thoughts on a movie on the film for prosperity. They don't want to do it. They want to be a bunch of assholes. So yeah, so I'm not gonna see that. Anyway, the basic gist of the plot is I've seen this movie so many times I know it like the back of my own hand. You have these characters named the Maitlands, played this kind of like a Norman Rockwell-ish type family, played by Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis, and they move into this town, and they decide to spend their vacation decorating their idyllic New England country home. And while the young couple are driving back from town, Barbara swerves to avoid a dog, on the roadway, and because they're driving on a covered bridge. So she swerves to avoid the dog, and then they crash through a covered bridge, plunging into the river below. And I like the touch that the film has, where it's actually the dog is the one that sends their car going into the river, because they crash through the covered bridge and they're hanging off the edge, and the weight of the one board is holding them up, and the dog then jumps up on the board and then sends them flying. Basically sends them to their death. Very definitely one of the many dark bits of dark humor in this movie. They return home, and based on such subtle clues as their lack of reflection in the mirror and their discovery of the handbook for the recently deceased, or as they made a flub, it said recently diseased. It's like, no, deceased. They begin to suspect that they might be dead. Adam attempts to leave the house to retrace his steps, but finds himself in a strange otherworldly plane covered in sand and populated by enormous sandworms. And no, these sandworms are no way related to sandworms from Dune, but they do have some. They are sandworms though. And after fleeing back into their home, the Maitlands' peace is soon disrupted when their house is sold to an obnoxious new residents, the Dietzes, arrived from New York City. The new family consists of Charles, a former real estate developer, his second wife Delia, an aspiring sculptor who creates really awful art. And I love the whole thing is like, I'm trying to find one of the lines here that she has. It's just such a bitch in this movie. Um, I'm just trying to see. It's got. I know it's in here. I've seen it before. Oh yeah, she's going pretty crazy. No, Charles, I will not stop living and breathing art just because you need to relax. Ha. I'm here with you. I will live with you in this hellhole, but I must express myself. If you don't let me get out of this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will take you with me. Yeah, well, maybe this house could use a little remodeling. But why don't you just leave this room, okay, alone, okay? Okay. So, on the whole, she has so many lines like that where she's just being a complete bitch. The whole thing where, Lydia's talking about, they don't want to come down. It's like, Charles, why not? Alpha's like, why not? I think the reason is because they're trying to scare you away and you didn't get scared. Please, they're dead. It's a little late to be neurotic. Or then the whole one where they go in the attic. They're trying to, Lydia shows them the attic where the Maitlands are up there. And Opho's like, fabulous. Opho Fenlock's locked door ghosts. Probably committed suicide up there. I'm totally enchanted. They're in there? They must live like animals. It's locked. How do they get in? Open the door! She starts banging on the door. Open this door, you dead people, or we'll bust it down and we'll drag you out by the ropes you hanged yourself with. Should he commit suicide? It doesn't matter, Lydia. I have a chance to teach you something here. You have got to take the upper hand in all situations, or people, whether they're dead or alive, will walk all over you. Then there's like, speaking of, I'm just trying to find the one with her art where she freaks out about her artwork because these moving guys are moving her art, and she's yeah, like this. This is my art, and it is dangerous. Do you think I want to die like this? And then later on, her art comes to life, and you know, takes her hostage pretty much. Yeah, Catherine O'Hara was great in this. So anyway, they arrived from New York City. You have Delia, she's inspiring sculpture, and then you also have Lydia, her goth daughter. And I think this might have been the film that inspired the goth craze, because I don't really think it was. I mean, I'm not familiar. I mean, I was born in 1989, so I didn't really see if goth was around before this. But I know you had stuff like The Cure. I think had songs before Lydia, but Lydia, I think in this movie, in a big film, kind of really made the goth style even more popular because of this movie. And but anyway, Winona Ryder does a great job in this. Her performance is really good for a young actress. She really has a very memorable performance. Basically, just plays a goth girl, but she's definitely one of the more memorable. She has a nice personality about her, even though a lot of her personality seems to be no personality, but she does a good job showcasing that. Under the guidance of their interior designer, Ofo, walks through and sees all the horrible, oh, what a nightmare. This is hell. Sponsored by LL Bean. This is LL Bean. Yeah. It's like a little gasoline, a blowtorch. No problem. Oh, deliver me from LL Bean. The apartment the house was pretty badly decorated. The wallpaper was dated as hell, and I would have done something about it too. I would have torn it down as fast. I would have torn it down as fast as they did as well, because it's awful looking. But anyway, the Dietzes then turn the house into a gaudy piece of pastel tone modern art, which is just as awful looking as the awful wallpaper. The Maitlands then seek help from the afterlife caseworker, Juno, who informs them that they must remain in the house for 125 years. They want the Dietzes out of the house. It's up to them to scare them away. The Maitlands' attempt at scaring the family away prove utterly ineffective. Like, I like the stuff where they're trying to scare them away, and They dress up in sheets. Or they try to do the whole thing where they rip their faces off, and it's kind of gory for a PG movie. Rip their faces off, and put I think Geena Davis like what I think Adam takes his head off. She grabs it and she's holding on to it. Geena Davis is holding his head with a knife. They can't see. They can't. It doesn't matter because they can't see them, so none of that even matters. And then they try to put on sheets, clang chains around, and then all it does is just make Lydia goes in and is like, what are you like? That's what Lydia finds out about them, takes pictures of them. It's like, what are you all gross under there? You're like maggots and pus under there. Are you like Night of the Living Dead under there? It's like, no, 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 we're normal, we're fine. And the whole thing was like, moan louder, whoa! And then they're like moaning, oh, ooh, oh, scary ghosts. We're scary ghosts. It doesn't work, of course. All it does is you have Lydia's mom, Delia, like just wakes up in the middle of the night, thinks shuts off the TV. And Lydia even says, "Oh, that's not gonna work." She's sleeping with her best friend. She's sleeping with Prince Valium tonight. Can't scare her. She's sleeping with Prince Valium tonight. So anyway, so that proves ineffective completely. So then the Maitlands, even though they remain invisible to Charles and Delia, their daughter Lydia can see the ghost couple and befriends them. And against Juno's advice, the Maitlands contact the miscreant Beetlejuice, a freelance bioexorcist ghost to scare away the Dietzes. However, Beetlejuice quickly offends the Maitlands with his crude and morbid demeanor, and they reconsider hiring him, though too late to stop him from wreaking havoc on the Dietzes. The small town's charm and the supernatural events inspire Charles to pitch his boss, Maxie Dean, on transforming the town into a tourist hotspot. But Maxie wants proof of the ghosts. Using the handbook for the recently deceased, Otho conducts a seance and summons Adam and Barbara, and they begin the decay. A really sad scene that was really well handled. The lighting was really well done. It was good makeup effects. Really sad and tragic scene. I thought the music and Danny Elfman's score, another great thing about this movie. Another great thing out of just a epitome, not really epitome, I have a cornucopia of great things about this film. So they begin to decay because Otho has unwittingly performed an exorcism. Horrified, Lydia summons Beetlejuice and agrees to marry him if he saves them. Beetlejuice disposes of Maxie, his wife, and Otho, and then prepares a wedding before a ghastly minister. The Maitlands intervene before the ceremony is completed, and Barbara riding the sandworm through the house to devour Beetlejuice. Finally, the Dietzes and Maitlands agree to live in harmony in the house. Beetlejuice, meanwhile, is seen waiting in the afterlife reception area, where he angers a witch doctor who shrinks his head. And that scene was actually shot after the test screening, because the test screening went so well that Tim Burton decided, I need to film one more scene of Beetlejuice. So he shot him in the reception area. And so yeah, it's Beetlejuice. And all I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to look some quotes. I'd show clips, but I reviewed this before, and I removed the review because I had copyright claim on it. So anyway, I think one of the parts got blocked, I think, actually. So anyway, this is one of the more famous scenes, what are your qualifications? Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. Traveled quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague and had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact you're talking to a dead guy. Now, what do you think? You think I'm qualified? I didn't even do it justice there, because someone got caught in my throat when I was trying to... What are your qualifications? Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I traveled quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague and had a pretty good time during that. I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. Not to mention the fact you're talking to a dead guy. Now, what do you think? You think I'm qualified? Go ahead. Make my millennium. The whole thing where, I like the scene where Beetlejuice is telling Lydia why he can't say his name. Why he can't tell Lydia his name. Because if I tell you, you tell your friends. Your friends are calling me on the horn all the time. I gotta show up in shopping centers for openings and sign autographs and shit like that. And that makes my life a hell. Okay? A living hell. Of course, I remember the whole thing where the Adam and Barbara are looking through the handbook for the recently deceased. I was like, this thing reads like stereo instructions. And they even repeat that line later when the Dietzes end up in the same, predicament at the ending of the movie. They open the handbook. Like, this reads like stereo instructions. I'm just looking. Come for your daughter, Chuck. That's a good one. I'm feeling a little anxious, if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean, it's been about 600 years after all. I wonder where a guy, an everyday Joe like myself, can find a little action. And that's when the Dante's Inferno strip club shows up in the miniature. That's the other really cool thing about the movie is the production design. Really kind of cool stuff. The miniature, the idea, the miniature of the town that Adam built on his free time. That becomes a huge set piece in the movie. Even in the climax of the film, Adam gets shrunk down by Beetlejuice, drives around a car, drives into his foot. uh, you know, and you have the whole stuff where Beetlejuice is in the miniature, living in the miniature, and you have the whole thing where I love the way that they don't show Beetlejuice that at first, like they just really do this gradual build up. Um, they did a really good job doing that, and making you really like on edge, waiting for Beetlejuice to show up and for Beetlejuice to do something, and to show why he's called the ghost of the most. And so then you have the whole sort of thing. I remember or there's a fly flying around, and he's like, "Hey, hey, hey, come here, come here, come here. I got a nice little juicy Zagnut bar for you. Come on, come on." So it's because he eats bugs, so Zagnut. And that's like the old. That's like I thought Zagnut was not a real candy bar until later. I figured out it is a real candy bar. It was not a candy bar that was just made up for this movie. Of course, he gets the fly and eats it. It falls for Beetlejuice's trick. Um, a lot of the more memorable lines there's some that are from the other actors and things like that, but um, of course the most memorable lines are from Beetlejuice. It's like you know it's showtime. Of course, I didn't do that justice. So I'm not anywhere near as good as Michael Keaton. This is one of this is what I'm talking about when you don't really see Beetlejuice. You start out with just seeing a little bit you hear his voice, he's sitting down, looking at the business section, of the afterlife paper or whatever. It's like, let's see, business section. Ooh la la, what do we got here? A Maitland's, huh? Cute couple, look nice and stupid too. Then you have the whole thing where they're having the whole wedding at the end. He's like, the preacher's like, "Do you take this woman to be your wedded wife?" Oh, geez, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a big decision, isn't it? I mean, I always said if I ever did it, I was gonna do it once, and that was it. Sure, yeah, go ahead. And this is one the commercial we have is hilarious too. The used car style commercial. Um, and he's like, I like the one too during the same wedding scene where he's speaking to Lydia about the owner of the finger he pulled out of a wedding ring. Yeah, he pulls out a bone, like a finger bone. It has a wedding ring on it. It's hilarious. And he's like, and Beetlejuice is all like, "I'm telling you, honey, she meant nothing to me, nothing at all." And of course, the scene where you have when they dig up Beetlejuice, and I like the whole thing where is like, you know, you're trying to get somebody out of your house. I'm trying to get somebody out of your house. The whole thing where they don't have this quote in there, but I love this scene where it seems like they might be getting not want to get don't want Beetlejuice's help, so he gets all desperate, and this cracks me up. He changes his clothes to the same clothes that Adam Maitland that Alec Baldwin is wearing. He's like, hey, look, hey, we're pals, we're best buds. Hey, we even wear the same clothes. We even shop at the same store. Come on. Yeah. The whole he lifts up Geena Davis's skirt. He's like, whoa, whoa. Look at us like, whoa. Oh, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, nothing. Then he's looking for his card. He's like, I got a card around here somewhere. Here. Who do I have to kill? Here, hold that for me, would you? She hands Barbara a rat. Whoa, ah! Like, there you go. You don't have to kill anybody. Possession. Good. Learn to throw your voice. Fool your friends. Fun at parties. And, of course, I love it, when they decide not to take his help. And, he, gets pissed off. He's like, you bunch of losers! You're working with the professional here! And then he kicks down the model tree and he grabs his balls and honks them and he's all like, nice fucking model! Classic. And then, I'm just seeing if there's any more. Attention, Kmart shoppers. That was so cool. Like when he came out, Beetlejuice showed up at the end. And it's also different too that this movie has, and pretty much Beetlejuice is not really someone you want his help, but it's necessary. He's pretty much an evil guy, but it's a necessary evil. And I like that. It's a necessary evil. How many movies out there, especially horror comedies, have a necessary evil type character? Where he's not in it really to help you. He's in it for himself. But in the end, he has the powers. He has everything that is going to help you get out of the situation. You need his help. Whether or not you want it or not, you need his help. So I like that idea. Of course, the whole thing where he's like, that is why I won't do 2 shows not night anymore. I won't. And I like when she's, the whole scene where he's trying to teach, Lydia, what, who he is, trying to get Lydia to guess his name and makes a beetle appear. Hi, how you doing? Beetle! Yes, now for part 2. Conjures a glass of orange juice and pours juice in a glass. Beetle, breakfast, orange, liquid, Beetlejuice? Beetlejuice? Yes, you said it! Name's Beetlejuice? You said it 2 times. Come on. Say it one more time. Hey, wait a minute. It was you. You were the snake. What are you talking about, a snake? And then the whole thing where he's just trying to get Lydia to say his name again. And maybe I should talk to Barbara. He's like, no, you don't need to talk to Barbara. Just say it! Just say it! And then, of course, the ending where he's... this is one of my favorite scenes, is the one that's at the end, after he's in the waiting room. These are the last lines of the movie. If he's sitting next to Witch Doctor, who's next in line, he's like, oh, pardon me. Did you do that? That's very nice work. Let me ask you something. How do you get them so small? Hey, there goes Elvis. Yo, King. Switches the numbers. Well, looks like I'm next. Good thing, too. I gotta do a photo shoot for GQ in about an hour and a half. Yeah, they've been after me for months, doing some underwear deal. I don't know what. And the Witch Doctor just calmly goes over and sprinkles powder on Beetlejuice's head and starts shrinking. His voice gets higher as his head gets smaller. He's like, whoa! Hey! What are you doing? Hey! Stop it! Hey! You're messing up my hair! Come on! Whoa! Wah! Wah! Stop it! Wah! Hey! This might be a good look for me. Great way to end the movie, and it's just so fitting. I mean, and with just funny and really funny scene to a funny movie, and that's Beetlejuice. I really don't know what to say. I got on for 50-something minutes. I can't help myself. I love this movie, and part of it was just me ranting on this piece of shit DVD, which is a fucking piece of shit. Lazy ass motherfucker. Um, uh, the other part was me, talking about the movie and behind the scenes and so forth. But a lot of it was just getting my aggression on this fucking piece of shit DVD. Ah. Anyway, what else to say except rate the movie out of 5 stars. Give it 5 out of 5. I find nothing wrong with this movie. I love it. I love it to death. I really do. As cliched as that might sound, I really do love this movie. I grew up watching the movie as a kid. And I find it just as enjoyable now as an adult as I did as a kid, if not more so, because I actually get a lot of the jokes that I didn't get as a kid. I think it's visually stunning, well crafted, hilarious, dark, black comedy that is one of the best comedies of the 80s and one of the best comedies of all time. And I just find it a very, very original, irreverent, um, hilarious, gothic, masterpiece. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of Beetlejuice, and I will see you guys later. Daylight come and me wanna go home.